For this year's dinner event, we challenged Natalie Homan, head chef of the Apothecary 1878, to create her own version of fish and chips that complemented our two speakers. Robbie Davis from Potatoes South Australia Incorporated, who provided insight into the nutritional benefits of potatoes and sustainability of production, and Dr. Beck Forder from Adelaide University, who described the agricultural nutrition and feed needs of the yellow-tailed kingfish. Here are some highlights from the evening.
Mais je veux retenir la joie et oublier la peine.
On behalf of the Nutrition Society of Australia, the Adelaide Group, just like to warmly welcome you to our third event here at the Apothecary. Tonight you'll get to experience a very unique foodie experience. For those of you that have dined with us before, you'll know that Natalie, the head chef here, loves a challenge. Her challenge was to create her own version of fish and chips, and that's what we've got here tonight.
If we talk about Australia and our production here, potatoes represent 20% of all vegetable production. They're in fact the biggest single contributor to horticulture. Now going to South Australia, we're in fact the biggest producer of potatoes in this country. We only produce 1.2 million tonnes at a national level, but we produce 385,000. And I think that certainly will go up as long as we can get the water. What we do produce, which you'll see in your supermarkets, is fresh washed potatoes, and we have perfected that in South Australia because we grow in the mallee. So those potatoes grow basically in sand, they've got plenty of water, they don't need washing very much, and we supply 80% of the country. The British Potato Council, who are really active in this space, did research, funded some research from Cranfield University in Bedford, and it compared the total greenhouse gas emissions and water usage for potatoes compared with rival carbohydrates, rice and pasta. And guess what? The top research findings are potatoes and pasta have systematically lower greenhouse gas emissions and water impacts than basmati rice on a fresh or dry white basis. The distinctions between potatoes and pasta were far less pronounced. However, when expressed in terms of typical portion size, potatoes have a lower greenhouse gas emission and water use compared with that. Therefore, on a global scale, a portion of potatoes potentially has a lower environmental impact than basmati rice or pasta alternatives. Potatoes contain a range of vitamins and nutrients, including vitamin C, folate, B group vitamins, magnesium and potassium, that has not been marketed well. Additionally, potatoes are extremely low in salt, and have 5 times more iron than broccoli. I thought that a potato was the most boring thing you could possibly eat. It wasn't particularly good for you, and it was completely unsophisticated. So you'd mash it or you'd roast it, and then you'd kind of eat it. And it came with other vegetables and a piece of meat. What tonight is about is really showing that potatoes, and of course fish, can be heroes, and they should be. I can absolutely guarantee that you'll go home having eaten absolutely delicious potatoes prepared by wonderful chef Natalie Homan. So thank you.
When you're dealing with meat-based proteins, it's all about the cost of production. What you pay is because of how much it costs to get it to market for you to eat. So usually with the kingfish, it's reserved for fine dining like we've got tonight, and is usually served as an entree in the ceviche that we had. It's also a beautiful sashimi fish, and it is marketed as that because of the premium price that we get from the product. So we are lucky to have it as a main today, so we're very, very lucky, but it is a beautiful quality fish. And what we're looking for is a nice opaque flesh with a beautiful cherry bloodline running through it, as well as no gaffing in the fillet, which means like it's not segmented, it's just nice and intact. So in South Australia alone, we are currently producing 1,500 tonnes, which we're moving to 2,200 tonnes in the near future. To be a profitable industry in South Australia, it needs to be in this region. So they're actually aiming for 3,000 tonnes in the future. Now there are good things and bad things associated with this. Now my job is sort of tailored around looking at gastrointestinal physiology, but using nutrition as a way to solve potential problems in industry. And as Robbie says, as the population is getting bigger, we need to feed them. And on a global scale, the only way that we're going to feed them meat-based or animal-type protein-based is through intensive farming. And so this is where aquaculture comes in, poultry production, pig production, large-scale production of animals. But with that comes space, comes increase in disease risk, and also increase in feed quantity. And if you know anything about agriculture or cost of animal production, 60 to 70% of the cost comes down to the feed alone. So trying to get the feed costs down will ultimately affect pretty much the cost of production, and therefore hopefully giving you a cheaper product to buy. If we go back to chicken, that's why chicken is so cheap, because they're very efficient at utilising the feed, and because we can keep the feed costs down, we can give you a nice cheap product. Because the aquaculture industry at the moment is quite young compared to the advances we've made in pigs and poultry, we've got a long way to go before we can get that price down. So at the moment we target kingfish as a premium fine dining product. Kingfish are carnivorous fish, they eat little fish, okay? So it's very hard to take out an animal-based protein from them and put a plant-based protein in without side effects. So at the moment, a lot of our work focuses on using plant-based proteins as an alternative feed source or protein source for these fish. Again, because of what we use soybean meal, and soybean meal, if you know, has some anti-nutritive factors in it, and this can affect the digestive tracts of the fish, giving them a condition known as winter gut syndrome or subacute enteritis. It's just because they're carnivores. They can't deal with that much. So an inclusion of about 20% or more of soybean meal can actually affect the gut health of the fish. Now this could be because of the anti-nutritive factors, or the fact that you've changed the intestinal microbiota in the gut, and therefore will then have side effects through that. So you see with increasing inclusions of plant-based protein is an increase in feed conversion ratio, which is bad, and poorer efficiency. So they have to actually eat more to put on more weight. Now if you think about it, they only put on 3 kilograms in 12 months. So it's a slow process, because at the end of the day you want 100 centimetre fish, commercial about 10 to 15 kilos. So it is a long process to get them to market. If you think about it in chickens, again I love my chicken references, you can put on 3 kilograms in 6 weeks. Alright, so it's about tailor making that diet, and it's trying to come up with new novel nutritional solutions to, one, bring down the cost, but also to make that animal more efficient to get to market weight at a quicker stage, so you don't have to keep them for too long.